I'm here today with Judith, Jake and Mark. They're all part of the production team from a filming competition called Memories Recorded, Memories Stored. Welcome to one and all of you.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If you could, someone needs to give us a brief synopsis. Judith, if you could do that. And then tell us, oh, sorry, let me start again. If you could just tell us, each one of you, your connection to this film. And then perhaps if you could then tell us what the film's about, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, great. My name is Judith Modrak. I'm the sculptor. The film chronicles an installation, an outdoor installation that I did in Governor's Island in New York City in the fall of 2016. And the idea for the film was really hatched as a way to record all the steps involved in bringing this piece to life. And one key component of the piece was that it was an audience participatory sculpture. So it was a first for me in a number of ways. It was the first time I used this particular material, which was a fiberglass resin casting material that was translucent. It was the first time that I engaged with the audience to participate in the completion of the ultimate work.
Yep.
And then finally, it was the first time I did an outdoor installation. So the risk was really large. And I'm happy to report, and it's chronicled in the documentary, it was an enormous success, so very exciting.
It's not your first film though?
It's the first film about my work, and the first time I've been in a film.
Right, okay. Fine.
I'm a sculptor. Our director here can speak more
over to you,
to.
Jake, yeah.
Well, I mean, the documentary itself follows Judith's journey in regards to this particular piece, and the narrative follows the creation of the sculpture from basically conception to, basically the installation, and the different, battles and struggles she had as an artist in developing that piece, and, the curiosity she had in regards to how the audience was going to receive the piece and the interaction between the piece. And these were all firsts for her, starting out in regards to creating something that the audience actually has an effect on.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it was at first in many respects. Yes,
Right, okay.
it did.
And Mark, over to you.
I decided to be the producer. I'm also Judith's husband, and I worked with Jake before. I performed in one of his films that was nominated in the Academy Award Pool
Right, okay.
for a dramatic short, and so we got to know each other. And I told Jake what Judith was doing, and we, I guess, light bulbs went off, and both had Jake's much brighter than mine, of course. that rather than just chronicle, it was a story. It was a real narrative, and a constructed narrative. I was interested in it from the production side because I think that the creation of fine arts, whether it's sculpture or painting, is a big mystery to a lot of people.
Yeah,
They think
absolutely.
it's some guy puts on a beret and goes and paints with a paintbrush and wears one of those blue sewn blouses. So it's really
Well, you mean they don't?
Only sometimes.
Only sometimes. So it was important that I also thought it was important that there's a big trend in art in general, fine arts, that people want interaction, and Jake picked up on that immediately and understood that, because so often things are in isolation and people don't interact with them in terms of fine arts. So.
And that's actually a really important point about what Jake took. So I came to it as I wanted something to document the evolution of this body of work. Jake brought to a whole vision, a whole layer of, it was more like an odyssey. It was Odysseus. It was the journey of the sculptures. It was how they were conceived and then, gave birth and then took form and then matured. So it was an arc that was much more pronounced and much more involved than just documenting the work, out of the studio to the installation spot.
And Jake, had you done the documentary? Was all
No,
narrative?
this is my first.
Oh, right, okay.
And that's what I was really excited about. And I come from commercial background and just recently started delving into narrative shorts. And so when this opportunity came to make a documentary, I jumped at it, and I'm really happy that they asked me to be a part of it.
And it's a bit of a stupid question because obviously it is different, it's a factual piece, but how does the filmmaking process differ to making a narrative feature?
For me, it's, you're always making an argument in your work. And so just spending time with Judith and just trying to comprehend what she wanted from the work. And then for me, it was a learning experience as well. So I just kind of took the approach that I went through in understanding Judith and the process of creating a sculpture, and just created a story from that. I found that to be interesting, and I guess the audience finds that interesting as well. So that was the process.
And most of the time, when I talk to documentary makers, it's all about research. I mean, some guy he used a wonderful phrase, which was that he felt he had 600 pictures that he could then delve through, and he had tons of historical documents, and he reached this critical mass. In other words, he knew he had enough to make the film. So was there any kind of research? I suppose the research is Judith is there, so you're very lucky. You've already got the center. Well, you've got the centerpiece, haven't you?
Right. I mean, that's the thing. The film is all Judith, and the research actually is part of the film. It's like just these different arcs. So, not really. I didn't really do any real research in that regard, because I felt that the process of creating a sculpture was intriguing enough, and whatever happens during that process is what we would document. So the research was happening in real time.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Because it is real time and living, you capture that. And I think I remember when I was a child in grade school, they showed me it was an old black-white film of Henri Matisse when it is just before he died, doing those fabulous paper cutouts.
Oh, do you know what? I saw a documentary about that.
Okay.
That's so interesting. No, it's quite recent on the BBC, because I think I'm right in saying that was what his
signature piece.
It was,
works,
but he hadn't done anything like that. But he
No.
moved from that to that, didn't
Right,
he?
because
He did.
he
It was
was
the
ill.
end
He
of
was ill,
his
wasn't he?
life. It was his
But the point is that seeing how that was done influenced me so much as a 10 or 11-year-old that I became really interested in art. And that was captured live at the moment because he was just shifting into that media. So seeing how Judith takes it from inception, as Jake, and then as you say, getting through the process, how do they do that? We're hoping that this would encourage other people to take that real live interest, not to intellectualize it, but to get
To
closer,
understand,
and get closer.
Well, and it was weaving. That was a really good point, Mark. So it was weaving in things. So Jake really took it through, like, what is your process? So I talked about how I sketch things out, and then there's scenes where I'm sculpting on the armature, and because a lot of people don't really understand sculpture, how does it manifest, and then ultimately have this three-dimensional form, and what goes into that, right? There's this kind of magic involved, but it's also very incremental. It's very,
it's very slow, I'd imagine. Very
it's
slow.
a really slow process from end to end. It's actually much different than painting, because you're not, you have to conceive of it, then you have to architect it, you have to engineer it, you have to make sure that where your building is going to be solid enough to support whatever base or frame it's on. I mean, there are a lot of considerations that go into it. And then there's just a whole creative, fluid sort of wonderful component that occurs in the studio, in private, when you're ultimately sculpting that form. So, there are lots of steps involved along the way, certainly.
Are you a nightmare to go shopping with? Are you very tactile and you need to touch? And
I do.
I can imagine that. She likes to go shopping with.
She does enjoy working with her hands.
Of course,
and that's the other thing, is that a lot of people don't know this about sculptors in general. They have a lot of carpentry knowledge and
Of course, because you need the
welding.
skills.
They're what you Americans would call shop skills.
Yeah.
They know how to weld, they know how to solder, they know how metal behaves, and because that's all inside of it, and they know how to build platforms, and there's a lot of geometry too, you know, of how you're going to cut things. So a lot of people don't know that, and I became impressed with that too.
Well, even structural support.
Structural
that's
support.
right. Yeah.
And is there any kind of engineering skills involved as well?
Well, I mean, there's the skill in the sense that you have to create an armature that's going to support the weight of the sculpture. And I mean, it is actually fun. We didn't have it in the film. There's a casting scene, so we work with I work with a mold making casting foundry, because particularly for fiberglass resin cast, which this material is, you need to go to a specialized basically artisans that are specialized in this particular procedure and method of creating a sculptural material. So it's the same as a bronze foundry, but for cast resin is similar. You need people that are experienced and they understand the material, and they can, and they also have the facilities to do
Yes.
it, since it requires lots of fans and other things. So for these, for these pieces, I always use my hands a lot.
You
And
should be a sculptor. You'd be made for it.
so for these particular pieces, a mold is made, and the film talks you through the different steps of what happens. So I won't give it away, but the mold making part is conducted in the foundry. That piece of the work is done there, and then prior to that, though, the armatures are made, which are metal armatures that support the form and give you a pretty clear idea of if things are going to topple over or not. So this particular foundry owner told me that in his 20 years of experience, these were the best armatures he'd ever seen, because they're
fantastic.
hardcore. My armatures are basically the sculpture. They're just not the completed sculpture. It's like a rough sculpture with metal.
Now,
So-
it's well known in the UK, I don't know if it's like in the US, that these fine skills, you're talking about foundries and bright and
Sure.
all sorts of things, and, I don't know, leather, belt making, those skills are fast disappearing.
Yes.
So
Oh.
is that the same in the US? So
Yeah,
is
very
there
much so.
are you
Yeah.
going to reach this point where it's, I mean, I don't know how difficult it is now, but is it getting more and more difficult to find people that can do these things?
Well, even more so, artist. I mean, I'm so old school at this point that I would say at least 50% of my peers are doing 3D modeling. They're using animation. They're not even hands-on in the sense of painting or applied skills anymore. So even what I'm doing, which isn't the foundry work, it's the pre-work, it's the creation of the piece that the foundry takes to generate the final bronze or resin cast. Fewer and fewer artists are doing that. So meaning that I see as this evolves and we become a more mechanized society, more digital society, that the skills that I have as a sculptor are also become more and more rare. And it's unfortunate because
Sad, very
it's
sad.
really
It is
sad.
sad.
It's really sad.
So do you think of someone like Damien Hirst or Jeff Koons? They don't do any of their work. They've
I'm not a
never
fan of
done-
Damien Hirst, but
Okay,
that's
I
another-
know. Nor am I. But
Yeah.
scratch that. We'll edit that out.
That's all right. It's just
yeah,
it's,
so do I.
all these
yeah.
things are subjective, aren't they?
Exactly,
You know, I
yeah.
just don't get it. But that's that's one man's meat is another man's poison, as they say. You know, but the point I think you're making here is the skills are disappearing.
You
Right,
know,
so the
because-
skills are
because-
disappearing.
Because there's fewer artists doing hands-on work, there's less demand for those artisan craftsman skills, and it becomes like this negative spiral, right? Because there's not enough business for them, and the craftspeople
Mm-hmm.
are dying out. Now, living in New York City area, I'm sure it's the same in London too. The big shops are there.
Oh yeah, you've got them all. Yeah, taken over everywhere.
Right, but I mean, the big casting people are there. I'm guessing that the regional people are sort of disappearing as the old man shuts the door.
Well, the
at age
facilities
80.
for stone carving would be another really
Yeah,
good
stone carving's
example.
a great
is that
example, yeah.
Although I do find with my friends that are artists that they're relying more and more on digital media. So they're doing more, even a very creative work, you know, they're eliminating the hands-on component. So,
Yeah.
I mean, when that was really what I was
Yeah.
trying to get at by my earlier comment is not making a judgment call on Damien Hirst or Jeff Koons. It's just that the work they do is manufactured and created by other
people, yeah.
So that's in my particular case, the tactile quality of creating something, the experience, meaning the flow and the rush of dopamine and everything else that happens when I'm sculpting, that's where the passion comes from. You know, for me, I mean, the ideas are one thing that really inspire me and motivate me. However, it's the actual process of creating this thing out of nothing that's, to me, intrinsically engaging and really is why I wake up in the morning. You know, that's what motivates me in my life and has for decades. So
No, that's
Sorry,
really lovely.
Mark.
Pearl.
No.
What? What?
No, I said sorry, Mark. You were just saying that wakes you up in the morning.
Right.
Usually breakfast.
So can I assume that this is the first time you've worked together, if this is your first film?
Yes.
And if that's the case, how did it work as a husband and wife team when it's your film?
well-
Because, the reason I ask is,
Okay.
as a producer, I
Yes.
assume that you have, directors and producers. Let me rephrase this. Directors and producers really call the shots on any production. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right.
So what I'm trying to get at here is, it's a husband and wife team. The film is about Judith, but you're producing with. I don't know if you're co-producing this.
No.
How did it go? There's decision making along the way. That's what I'm getting at. So how did that go, how did that work between you?
I would say there are three things. First of all, with Jake also constructed. He's the writer on this.
Yeah.
And that so we had you have like an anchor, a very strong person in the middle. There's less likely that there's going to be any issue on decisions because one, he's got more experience than both of us combined. Number two, he's a third party, so he doesn't have the emotion attached to it. Okay, so he's going to be objective.
Yeah.
And the thing that I discussed with Judith is that we were always going to, and I kept sending you emails that Jake, you're the
Defer to
director,
Jake.
and it's your decision.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
great. That sounds like a great idea.
That's a great question.
Well, no, because
That's a
I
great
can
question.
see that's very clever, because then it means if there's any situations where there might be a difficult decision to make, you can defer to him, just let him have the final
Well,
say.
and actually, because he is the director, and I'm originally an actor, and I have been involved with another film, Naipit, I kind of see from all points of view. If you want to get, there's the artist, then if you want the artistry, that's the director, it's not the producer. Okay, so, but you have to allow each person to run in their track as fast as they can run and perform as best as they can. So there was also sort of a little learning process that Judith had, because I was actually more patient, because I understand this is going to go like this.
Yeah, you've done it before. You've been there.
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's a little bit of experience.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really all that is. And trust in the process at the end, because there's a thing called editing, right?
Right.
And
Right.
Jake's going to edit this in a way that's
Yeah.
there.
It was a fun process, actually, because there were moments where I would just stand back in the corner and let these guys duke it out, and then step in, but it was a great collaboration all the way around. Judith had her concerns and her message,
Yeah.
and so did Mark had his concerns and the message. His objective with the film, and my objective was to just figure out some sort of cohesive narrative that would engage an audience. So I think I had the easiest job out of everyone.
The only reason I raised it is because I spoke to a husband and wife team yesterday from Dagsin, actually. We recorded it.
Okay.
And they were talking about the writing process, and they said, "Oh, we wrote it together." And there's a warning bell going, "Bing, bing." Like, how did you do that? Nightmare. Because if you're writing, it's going to be, to and fro. And I said, "Well, how did you do that?" I must have, because that sounds like a recipe for disaster to me. Doesn't matter how close you are as a couple. And they said, "No, the way we do it is this: that Atom, the male, wrote the original screenplay, and his Anna, his wife, would then take the original screenplay and then work on it." And a great idea. So much less room for conflict, because he's already built it, and then she will look at it and go, "Well, yeah, but don't you think we should do something else?" And it worked really well.
Okay.
So that's how they got over it. Because I can imagine if you're writing together, that's when it's going to be a hassle. Because immediately you're coming in with different ideas. But I think to have a solid project to begin with, then chunk it away and move things around, has got to be a better option. Because the last thing you want to do is have grief. But because humans, by their very
definitely.
nature, will have different opinions about everything, won't they?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jake was, the collaboration. I couldn't agree more. I feel like it was a totally integrated collaborative effort, and the success of it. So we're so excited to be here, and we were also in the Queen's World Film Festival, and
really well
so
done.
really working out and seeing this. And actually, the piece itself, which is probably your further question, but I'll just just jump ahead. You know, the idea for this, for our memories, is that this installation is that it goes around the world, and with each new iteration, new sculptures are created, new people contribute their memories to the sculpture, and then ultimately there are 100, 200, 1,000 sculptures that are reside in a sculpture park. So the idea is to have one in Madrid, you know, to have one in, to have one in London, to have, yes, exactly. And then for that, of course, we'd work again as a team and do a full-length feature documentary on all the processes and you know. So,
that is the thought.
So,
yeah.
I mean, a lot of people that I've spoken to that have migrated from other art forms like graphic design or well, actually, you know, you can use graphic design example because that often happens, and you would get, and this I've seen this and experienced this. They've been high quality graphic designers, and then someone would make a documentary about their work. They've got involved in it. It's another art form, and they've kind of gone, actually, I love that filmmaking process so much. Actually, that's what I really want to do.
Okay.
So I suppose the question to you is, now you've experienced, and it is another form of art. It's creative.
Yeah.
Aren't you kind of thinking, oh, I'd really like to have a go at making something myself?
do you know what? I love it. I think it's an amazing medium. I've always enjoyed films from, you know, the get-go, and also the imaginative component of filmmaking, right? Making nothing from, you know, making something from nothing. All of that is intrinsically intriguing to me. Although no, sculpture it's my thing.
Right.
You know, like, and I always say this as my little joke, but the sculptures are definitely ready for the prime time. I'm not sure about me, you know, because I'm not the actor in the family. That's, you know, my husband. So I feel that I love film, and I'd like to be involved in another film, especially these documentaries. I think they're really neat, and working with Jake has been, really insightful.
So you're happy with what you do? You're never going to have a go yourself?
You mean directing or something? I would never say never. Whoever says never, do some people say never?
No, you're probably right. You're probably right.
Yeah, I wouldn't say never about that, and that is a very creative, expressive medium. Although, given, you know, bandwidth and, you know, juggling time on this planet, I have so many ideas that even if I lived to be 1,000, I wouldn't, you know, manifest them. And so I feel probably I'll be sculpting away, you know. You'll interview me at the next one. New sculptures,
I always remember, I think it was David Bowie, he was talking about life, how short it is, and he just, you know, I can remember him saying there is just not enough years to cram everything in. Even with everything he'd done, he said it still wasn't enough.
Actually, it's funny about that because about 10 or 12 years ago, we went, there was a fundraiser in New York, and David Bowie actually appeared in this club, small club. And he actually opened up saying he was nervous being in front of the crowd.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, you're nervous? How could it be, you know, after a 25-year career?
Did you actually get to meet him?
No, we didn't get to meet him, but he was mingling with the crowd, and
he was very close, close
very,
sighting.
very close.
Yes,
and, you know, he was.
You could feel his energy, his
very,
presence.
Very warm, you know. Very, because, you know, he lived in New York, and but to hear that as opening up, you know, he said, "You have to excuse me. I'm feeling a little nervous tonight." You know, so maybe this is the new transparency. I don't know, or honesty. And it was very, very,
I'd love to have met him. I really would love to have met him. He seemed like a cool guy.
I think he was, and I can tell you stories of seeing him.
Jake, were you had a thought on this?
Well, no, I mean, I feel that way. I feel that way about
because of course he decamped to New York years ago.
Years.
So Jake was thinking he's.
Well, no, I was just saying in regards to like nervousness and things like that. Like I love the grind of production and creating the work, and I still go through anxiety with films that I've created that screen, you know, 30 times, and I still have that anxiety when we screen this film later tonight. You know, I have my anxiety. I hate being in the room.
I think everyone. I interviewed Stanley Kubrick's cinematographer a couple of years ago, and he was telling me stories about Kubrick, and he was the same, always fiddling and tweaking, and was never happy with it. So, you know, so he doesn't.
If you want to torture me, that's my waterboarding. Send me in a room full of people in my film. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'll tell you the nuclear code. Fine.
But you know, but it shows you that whoever you, I mean, he was an amazing director. You know, he still stands one of the great. But it just shows you, it doesn't matter who you are, you're always going to have that
Yeah.
You're never quite satisfied.
Well, you
are you?
never set. I think that goes for all art forms because you're always, there's always that next, the next iteration or improvement or something else, or maybe it didn't quite capture the essence of what you wanted to portray. And so I think there's always that seeking. I love this Van Gogh quote actually that
What,
was
keep the scissors away from your ear.
don't drink absinthe.
There,
No,
yeah, and keep the scissors
right,
away,
and
yeah.
the scissors. No, he said, I'm seeking, I'm searching, I'm in it with all of my heart.
Okay, good, excellent, lovely quote.
Yeah, great quote.
So what's next away from what you're doing now with this film, and what's happening in your lives that's not connected to this?
Didn't you?
Oh, Jake, why don't you
Jake?
talk
What did you
first?
say?
Well, I mean, there's a few things going on. As Mark was saying earlier, we created a short film that deals with immigrants called Second Life. And that film is done amazingly well in regards to the reception it's received. And so there's talks of that being created into a web series.
Lovely.
There's been a few conversations in regards to it being turned to a feature. I'm currently in development in what I think would be my first feature. It's a music-based biopic that takes place in my hometown in Detroit. And let's see, and I'm with a company called Radical Media as a director. And they're commercial based, but they do a lot of documentary work as well, a lot of long length content. That's what's keeping me busy now. So.
Okay, brilliant.
That's what's waking him up in the morning.
Yeah,
Mark?
Jake's being a little humble. He's has a lot of experience. Jake originally worked in your early years, right, with Spike Lee for a number of years.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, and he has worked on a bunch of other things that are pretty interesting that he never tells me about. They just come out casually with people. Yeah, I met him. We were working on a project. So we, great hope for Jake, and he's going to be there. For me, continuing to work with Jake to help to pitch this as a web series. He talked about the potential web series.
Right, okay.
I also am involved with a film that I EP'd and acted in a few years ago, family comedy, and we've been pitching that as a potential TV series to various production companies. It's very early days. It's a tough business. You heard all that. And I continue the performance thing. Continue acting. I still audition quite a bit, and so I'm pursuing all those paths.
And Judith? Sculpting.
Sculpting, well, we
Hands-on.
know that
Sculpting.
without a doubt. Well, the really exciting news is we're talking to a number of museums about the next incarnation of Our Memories, which the piece is called. So that looks is very probable in later this year and also 2018. And we're also lining up other Insight sculptural installations, which are more like an artist in residency, where you create a body of work as a result of that program or place. So I did one in this past spring in February, that reflected the Panhandle region in Florida. So those are very site-specific, environmentally inspired bodies of work. And then finally, I'll just continue to do what I do in terms of being in shows, being in solo exhibitions. I had a big one a few months ago, and just keep the work going. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you to you all.
Thank you.
very much. That was
Thank you,
wonderful.
man.
Okay.
That was really,
Thanks.
really good. Thank you.
I'm Judith Modrak, and I'm a figurative sculptor. I live and work in New York City, and my studio is on Union Square.
I'm a huge fan of the dendrite collection from Judith. For me, their anthropomorphic form and how they're sculpted, they capture the human emotion, they capture the human angst.
The piece I'm working on is called Our Memories, and it's a outdoor installation with an interactive component. Most of my prior work is either been plaster cast or resin cast and some bronze work. This piece is utilizing a fiberglass resin casting technique, and the primary reason for that is that I needed a translucent sculpture, and I also needed a hollow sculpture that would embody the stones, the memory stones that the audience will be depositing in the sculptures. There are a number of artistic risks associated with our memories. It's the first time that I'm doing an outdoor installation. It's the first time I'm actively involving the audience, and it's the first time I'm using a new material, which is fiberglass resin cast. I don't know what'll happen. I really don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know if the sculptures will be half full or half empty. I don't know if they're going to be overflowing with these memory stones. I really don't know what's going to happen.